going to kick things off with our panel. Welcome, come on up, panelists. Welcome to the Retail and Consumer Goods Forum at Data and AI Summit 2023. Can't believe that we are in 2023. Hope you guys had a phenomenal week. Thank you for being here. We have some incredible customer speakers. Rob Saker is going to be doing a Databricks keynote. But to kick it off, we have a panel of leaders in the retail and consumer goods space. JR, don't fall off the stage. Moderated by very own JR from Databricks. And he's going to be up here speaking with Suze from Marks & Spencer, Deepak from Mars, and Anna from Gucci, all about how they are thinking about data and AI at their organizations. And make sure to stay here through the keynote by Rob Saker, and then we have Manbir Paul from Sephora, who's going to be taking us through data strategy at Sephora, which will be an incredible session. So thanks for being here, and JR, I will let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam. I mean, wow. You guys had a great week.
Yeah.
Come on. I know you just ate, but we can do better than that. For how many of you is this your first Data and AI Summit? Wow. Well, welcome. Thank you for spending the week with us. And it's been an amazing week of innovation and product announcements, and like Sam said, some amazing stories of how global companies are using data and AI to transform their business. So my name is J.R. Kelly. For the last 5 years, I've been able to sit at the intersection of what I like to call retail and technology and help brands big and small think about how technology can be an enabler for change and transformation. So I've been at Databricks for now a year and a half. I'm so excited to be entering what Ali termed as Generation AI. I think there's no more exciting time for us as a retail and CG industry as we enter in this. But you're going to hear a lot less from me and a lot more from these three people to my left. So let's do a round of introductions. If you guys just share, obviously name your role and who you work for, but maybe not everyone's familiar with Marks & Spencer, so maybe share a little bit about your brand too, and then curveball question. That's a lot to put on you guys right away, I'm sorry. But most exciting announcement you heard this week. Yeah.
Do you want me to start?
I would love it.
Hi, everyone. Really happy to be here. Thanks for having me on the panel. So I'm Suze. I am the head of data at M&S. So I look after our platform and engineering, our data science products, our governance, but also our adoption and enablement team as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with M&S, I'll use the word M&S, by the way. That's how we shorten it in the UK. So we're a UK-based retailer. We are grocery and apparel and homeware. We've been around for about 150 years. So yeah, a long time. Not me personally, of course, but the whole brand. We have about 1,000 shops in the UK, so brick and mortar stores. We have a presence online as well. We also have an international market. So if any of you shop in Target, you might see our confectionery randomly hanging around in the store. And a big growth area for us is India as well. So we have 100 stores in India too. And just to help with kind of sizing, so we are a public company, our annual sales revenue is just over 12 billion UK pounds, which with the current exchange rate is pretty much the same as dollars at the moment, which is a shame for us. But I'm very aware that I'm sitting next to Mars. So for you guys, this is like what, not that we would know, but what you would make in a month, I'm sure. So yeah, really happy to be here. Second part of the question, most exciting thing for this week. I mean, it's all been really fantastic. I think a lot of us were probably fangirling and fanboying with Satya and Ali having that really great chat. I think my team are really excited about Lakehouse IQ. Like that's been a big thing for us. But I think the thing that I'm taking away is just the speed of change at the moment is absolutely phenomenal. And the announcements that we've seen yesterday and even from Microsoft as well, it's just been pretty incredible. So we're kind of walking away going, wow, this is even more of an exciting time to be working in this field. But as a retailer, how do I bring that back and get some buy-in? So yeah, loving the week.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deepak Jose. I'm the Global Head of Data and Analytics Solution at Mars Wrigley. Sorry, I couldn't bring any M&Ms or Snickers to give any of you. Sorry about that. We are home to $10 billion brands. We are more than 100 years old with more than 100,000 associates. Our largest business is in the wet the pet care business, where we own some of the pet nutrition brands like Pedigree, Royal Canin, and pet hospitals. I represent the sweetest part of the business, which is the confectionery and the chocolate, M&M stickers, etc. We are approximately $50 billion in size. As part of my role, my job title itself is so long. We call it the one-demand data and analytics. And the purpose of that team is to break the organizational silos between sales, marketing, supply chain, so that how can we build a single source of truth when we are trying to address the key business problems of the company. What was the most exciting thing for me this week? I think the Databricks acquisition announcement for Mosaic AI. I don't know if I should call it as part of the event or a day before, but no. I think that is going to be game-changing. Now, as data analytics practitioners, we are actively figuring out how to leverage generative AI to solve the day-to-day business cases. And one question which is on the back of everybody's mind is how are we going to scale it? And I think this is going to be a game changer when it comes to the scalability, the cost of the solution. So I'm quite excited about the future it holds.
Great.
Cool. Thank you. So my name is Russo. I'm the Global Director of Data Science at Gucci. My guess is many of you know the luxury brand, so I'm going to go for that assumption. We are kind of quite a big brand at the moment. We have more than 500 stores across the entire world, more than 20,000 employees across all over the world. And yeah, we love fashion. Maybe some of you have actually heard the talk that my team did yesterday. It was on MLOps. So we are kind of now being a customer of Databricks for a couple of years, and we're enjoying it a lot. And going back to what you were mentioning regarding what really kicked it for me this week in terms of announcement, definitely Mosaic ML announcement was pretty big. I think generative AI as a topic has been in the mind and heart of many, given that from the day ChatGPT has been around, and I can't imagine most CEOs have reached out to their data teams. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think it's generally everyone is excited about being able to leverage these new type of models at scale in their own infrastructure. So in that sense, also the vector search part is something that we are extremely excited about, but we're also kind of aware of potential risks apart from the opportunities, let's say. So definitely trying to understand how we can leverage this without compromising on privacy, security, making sure that our data is safe and we can leverage it in the right way.
Yeah, we're gonna dig in with the whole panel on generative AI in a little bit. Let's set the table and talk about the industry. Obviously one of the world's largest or oldest industries is, two brands up here at least are over 100 years old. And we can all admit that change is not always fast in retail and consumer goods. Change can be quite slow, but to your point, Suze, the change is happening. And so companies need to lean in and understand how data and AI can really be a catalyst for not only change, but fast growth, mitigate disruption, all of those things that we've seen over the last 2 years. So, Anna, I'd love to start with you. What are some of those biggest trends that you're seeing in retail around, the use of data and AI?
I think, we are now talking a lot about generative AI, but apart from that, it clearly is on the mind of everyone. There's still a lot of classical use cases that everyone is trying to crack, or that we're in the discussion of cracking. So in terms of supply chain logistics, so demand forecasting is still kind of a big thing. I think a lot come from on the marketing side, so trying to understand how to best allocate budget across different channels. There is a lot in terms of, how do you leverage virtual reality to make sure that people are able to find what they want. Also directly on the e-commerce, the omni-channel, let's say, trying to understand what is the best way to leverage AI in order to serve better the client, create personalized experiences, and only recommend the best product. So there is a lot going on, and definitely LLMs will help out, and everything on generative AI will help out. But those have been kind of around for quite a while as use cases, and yeah, I think I covered a bit.
Well, and it's interesting because when I talk to retailers, it's, there's the, hey, it's the next bit, from your CEO, likely. Hey, here's the new shiny thing, go chase it and do it. It's like, well, we haven't actually done the base work, the use cases that we know are going to move the needle. So I think coming back to those is really important. Deepak, for you, in the CG space, what are you seeing showing up? Anna mentioned supply chain, but what else is showing up in your world?
So there are many things, but I want to see how many of you here, I want to see a quick show of hands, in the data and analytics space for more than 15 years? Very few. So I think 15 years, I think when you start doing data and analytics, the expectation from the leadership is that, hey, these are a bunch of really nerdy, geeky guys sitting in the basement of office and like solving the problems, right? And last week at the Cannes Festival, our CEO was speaking the language of technology. Our chief brand officer was speaking about prompt engineering. And I almost had a tear in my eyes when I heard them talking about data and analytics. 100%. So I think the idea that data sciences is somewhere in the basement to the role of data and analytics in the organization has significantly elevated. And I think while I get worried about the hype that we keep on talking about generative AI, but I think this is a wave, and I think all of us should ride it. I think that would be my first message before I get into the trend. The key things, I think things which we are seeing, the partnership with the retailers and the consumer good brands are improving through retail media networks. So we are starting to get first-party data from the retailers through clean rooms. We are having phenomenal partnership with our customers like Walmart, Amazon, or the largest retailers around the world. So that partnership is improving. Second, the use of technology within the CPG industry is not and is considered not as an option anymore. It is a leading driver of growth, revenue growth. So in our organization, what we have seen, the mindset of a data and analytics function being a cost center, it has changed to a profit center. We used to report into the chief information officer of the company. Now we report into the chief growth officer of the company. So, and that is, we always wanted to have a seat in the table. Now we have the seat in the table and we can demand things for the right kind of business problems. What does it take to be, is needed to be solved? So that's quite exciting.
Yeah, you're not fighting for resources anymore.
At this point, no. We want this generative AI to really start adding value at this point, actually. So,
good. And Suze, for you, Marks and Spencer, as you mentioned, covers a swath of type of retailer you guys are. You have private label, you're bringing brands in, so you kind of sit in a good intersection. It's like we almost designed the panel to be that way, but help us understand what you're seeing in the true retailer blended space.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of your points, and it sounds like you're having a really fun time at Mars, and I wish I could say the same. I think, we're a really old retailer, and I think the bit that's been quite interesting for us is, as you say, the CEOs, the CFOs are all going, oh my God, we should be doing something with AI. Suze, everybody. And we're like, yeah, we have been for a couple of years now, so it's quite concerning for us that they still haven't made that connection. But flip it to glass half full, I'm feeling really positive, and some of the conversations we've been having with our Databricks account team this week is, how do we use this and leverage this, on your point, and ride the wave and use it as a hook to start getting into those conversations. And I think it's better for us to be in a place where we've got use cases that we're already delivering, but they just don't realize that we are, as opposed to us not having done anything at all, which is good. I think the bit for us really, the two areas that we really want to focus on are customer, as you said, Anna. So personalization is really big for us. But we have, equally, we've got 50,000 colleagues that work in our stores. So it's a huge workforce for such kind of a small retailer compared to someone like yourself who's global. How do we optimize what they do? And I think for us, AI and Gen AI specifically, that's where we're really going to see some true benefit. And it's nothing radical. It's nothing crazy exciting. It's just making sure that our colleagues in stores are spending the most amount of time with their customers and then solving and automating all of the other stuff that they should be doing. And I think the conversation we're having with our exec team is that's really where the value is and what we should be going after, as opposed to all of the really cool, sexy stuff that they're seeing being written about. So that's kind of the the friction I think we've got at the moment, but it's a great place to be.
Yeah, I mean, in my conversations, enabling your frontline workers, who are usually the ones with the least amount of technology at their fingertips, the least amount of the ability to personalize through data. So it's awesome that you guys are doing that. The bright, shiny things. Anna and I were talking about NFTs last night, and just like, where'd they go? Well, you guys kind of started to touch on this from a company strategy perspective, and we heard yesterday in the keynote from Jerry at JP Morgan Chase, right, around one platform to help mitigate shadow IT and break down silos and really make sure that they're building a company strategy, but it takes enablement. To your point, it takes enabling your leaders, your business stakeholders, what you have been doing, what you want to be doing. Deepak, I think you have one of the longest titles I've ever seen on a slide. And so I know you mentioned one demand and the heavy weight you have of breaking down silos in your company. Can you talk a little bit about how you're approaching that and what those silos, what impact is that having? I know, again, most of us are probably living in siloed organizations.
Yep.
Some head nods, yes, that's pretty typical in retail. So help us understand that.
So absolutely. Like, so the role of any brand or a consumer goods company is to give the best consumer experience for our consumers, right? Like, giving the best experience should be the heart of what we should be doing. But here is what is happening in large organizations. So first of all, we are going through a very complex omni-channel journey for the consumers to have an interaction with your brand. We have on-platform and off-platform. You have pure play customers like Amazon, Alibaba. Then you have the brick and clicks like Walmart, Tesco, Kroger. Then on-demand delivery aggregators like Uber, Deliveroo, Delivery Hero. If you want to buy Mars, we have M&M stores. The experience of the consumer should be, it is always going to be non-linear, but it should be seamless. How can we create the best brand experiences is the business problem that we are trying to solve. But in large organizations, so I'm from India, so we have this elephant analogy, right? Many of you might have heard this. You might have heard about 4 blind people touching the elephant and explaining it. Somebody touching the trunk, calling it something, somebody touching the tail, calling it something else, where elephant is the consumer. And this happens quite a bit. The sales team explains the consumer a certain way with their data source. The supply chain explains the consumer a different way. The marketing explains the consumer a different way. And everybody is looking at the same consumer from a siloed mindset. And with our sponsorship from our CEO, we decided that we don't want to do revenue management or a sales analytics separately, with a marketing analytics separately, with a supply chain analytics separately. We are going to have a one demand mindset. So we are going to drive demand by giving the best consumer experience. So we decided to break out the silos between these. Sales is a large function. There are sub-functions like revenue management, route to market, or a strategic channel. We broke down the silos when we have decided to we have started to build a connected data foundation and building a single source of truth. Now, you can always build a connected data foundation, but the difference is that we are approaching. We have taken a rallying call within our data and analytics organization, and we have told we are going to be business problem first and data second. What does that essentially mean? So if you are in the data field, 15 years back, we started creating data warehouses. Then we started creating data lakes. Now these days we have lake houses. That's how we build the foundation. On the foundation, we generate some knowledge and insights, which will generate some action, which will create some small value to solve a business problem. And we have told the organization we are going to stop that approach. We are always going to start with a business problem first mindset. We are going to prioritize what are the problems that we are going to solve. And for solving that, what is the value that we can drive? To drive that value, what is the action? To drive that action, what is the knowledge and insight? For that, what is the connected data foundation that we need? That was a significant shift. And this happened for several years now. And we are seeing hundreds of $1 million in profitability improvement getting attributed to data and analytics team. So, and we believe that if we do the right kind of investment and right kind of business problem prioritization, we can drive 5 to 10x the return on investment for every dollar spent on data analytics. So it's a big movement. Data analytics is an enabler, but it is always going to be business-led and analytics-enabled.
I love that. I think, again, in talking to a lot of retailers, and I love your analogy about the elephant. I hadn't heard that one. I always said that customer experience is a horse built by a committee, which turns out to be a camel. But the fact that you are leading with those business problems, because that problem sits across all 4 of those teams, right? When we talk about driving personalization, faster checkout times, the ability to get that second buy quicker, right? Increase loyalty. All of those things sit in all 4 of those teams. It's just that how does the tech and data enable it? So I love that approach. Anna, you and I talked a lot last night about how you've been kind of changing the conversation around this at your company and really enabling your executives and being a kind of a change agent. Can you share a little bit of how you're approaching that and some of that conversation?
Yeah, so I think in general, I think this is probably something common across all different retailers, like tech or data or analytics, as you were mentioning also before, Deepak, was not core or center in terms of mindset from the beginning. I think things have shifted like significantly. Definitely, there has been a moment when there were discussions of bringing us on board around more than 2 years ago now. And there was a lot done in terms of analytics. There was a lot done in terms of BI, but maybe in terms of how do we go from what we have seen in the past and decisions that we had to make to the next steps. And to what you were also discussing before, Deepak, it has been interesting to showcase value from the beginning, maybe trying to tackling smaller problems instead of like gigantic ones, just to make sure that people were ready, because not everyone is going to be ready at the same time. So you have to go and kind of change the way you talk. You have to kind of change the term, the lingo, and everything you're explaining to people, because they will not see necessarily or they will not be as excited as you are in terms of technology or in terms of the platforms you're using or which model are you using. Or like if you go to an exec and try to explain SG Boost, they're gonna just like look at you a little bit disconcerted. So there's definitely been quite a steep curve at the beginning, but I think showcasing immediately what this could be looking like, starting from what were the pain points in terms of the business stakeholders, and also to what you were mentioning, Suzanne, like we do also have a lot of workforce in the retail and so in the stores, and we're thinking about, okay, what are the things that we can do better in terms of optimizing their time to make sure that they have like the most time with the customers and the customers have a seamless experience. So a lot of this has been like, trying to discuss this type of topics from the beginning instead of focusing necessarily on the data or the type of modeling, like where are the pain points? What are the things that we can help you with? And in that sense, one of also the discussion that we had is, it's like we're not just trying to solve a problem, like the business has to be part of the discussion always. And so we try to build, also in terms of breaking silos, we try to build cross-functional teams that don't only see one part of the problem, they kind of go across the entire domains that are involved. So it's not only marketing, but it's marketing plus media plus the customers team. So it's a lot of angles at the same time. It's not an easy, like you were mentioning it was like super linear and super easy. Honestly, it's been like definitely an interesting curve. But I've seen like a huge shift with respect to what it was in the beginning. And by the way, like the brand has been always kind of big in terms of analytics and BI. I think for us it was quite new, or they were not super aware of how much we could do across all the business functions once you could put everything at as a single source of truth and centralize in a certain way. So it's been quite a fun journey.
Yeah.
I think I should have added, it was not easy.
You made it sound so easy. You walked in and you were at the table and you're like, I'm Deepak, what's going on?
Yeah, so we generally tell that we had to, in many cases, do 6 months of pre-alignment to do 6 weeks of work. So it was a lot of alignment between functions. So don't underestimate the role of change management is what I would say.
100%. No, but and to also what you were saying before, like we are a 100 years old brand, And definitely there is like, you can see the change in the mind shift, generally speaking. I see our CEO super ecstatic about all things AI. I'm like constantly talking with him because he's seeing the change. He's actually seeing under his eyes. And I think when, ChatGPT came around, the shift was that the models, like most of the models were already there, maybe not at this stage, but they were already there for quite a while. What changed was the ability to do the experience of the democratization of it. So the ability to seamlessly go on a platform and talk with the model without having, a Python experience or, kind of a technical background. And this has completely changed the conversation for everyone. So.
I love the phrase you said earlier, and you said at dinner last night. I had to change the way I talk. Like I had to change the way you communicated, what you were doing, the value it was driving, because they don't care about feature function. They care about what you're driving. I think that's spot on. Suze, for you mentioned retail moves slow, but we have to move fast. Mm-hmm. So as you think about the internal conversations with your stakeholders and your leadership, how are you enabling them to move faster? How are you thinking about getting them on board with you?
Yeah, I think the whole conversation around change management is really interesting, and I'm not sure how people in the room feel, but I feel like the role of being a data leader these days is very, very different than what it was maybe 5+ years ago. I think some of the skill sets that you need are very different. I think change management and stakeholder influencing is really where I spend most of my time. And I was doing a bit of a review just ahead of this panel about like, where am I actually spending my time and what percentage of my time is with who? And I would say about 1/3 to 1/2 of my time is just with our leaders across the business, talking to them about whatever it is that we're trying to achieve, either progress against things we are doing or trying to sell the dream of problem areas that we could solve for. And I'm not even sure that that's enough. I think it probably should be more time that I spend with them. And I just think that's just a very interesting shift. I personally don't come from a technical background, so I've been in data for more than 10 years, but it's I kind of started in like operational data management as opposed to analytics or science or anything like that. And I've always had a bit of an imposter syndrome about it, if I'm honest. But in the last kind of 3 to 5 years, I now realize that as a leader today, I probably now have the right combination of skills, because change management and business knowledge is probably what has got us to the place where we are now, versus technical understanding. So I just think that's a really interesting reflection, and be keen to hear whether you two agree or are seeing similar things. I think the other thing for us is moving to a product model. Again, how you guys are thinking about it. Cross-functional teams, focusing on the problem, product-led, and then all of like the super technical, how we do it, features, platforms, is really kind of hidden from the business and what they see as the outcome, and they're really aligned with us on the outcome that we're trying to achieve. And I think that's been the shift over the last couple of years that has moved us forward.
Awesome. Well, I want to be conscious of time, and I want to make sure, I know all of you have some amazing thoughts on generative AI, so we're going to skip the people part, because you actually also just touched on some of the people points that we were making around ensuring your people have the skills necessary to not only the technical skills, but also those soft skills, those finesse skills of how you can affect change. So yesterday, we heard Ali say we're in now generation AI, and I'm sure your teams have had a lot of begun conversations around I can't do it every time. Generation AI, generative AI. There we go. And it's that new bright shiny to what you guys have all said, like to go chase that. And Satya mentioned though that we need to be responsible, and we are the stewards of this, and we want to make sure that it's done. And he had 3 tenets, and I was trying to type as fast as I could to get them all, but I thought it was a really great grounding for the room to hear, and really a calling from him as one of the world's largest leaders of a tech company to make sure that we all understood that. So Suze, back to you. I'd love your thoughts. When we think about generative AI in the retail and consumer space, consumer goods space, what are you most excited about?
I think there's probably 2 things for us. I think going back to that ride the wave, the hook that we were talking about as a Databricks M&S team, I think the bit that's really exciting is that it's kind of removed maybe closed the gap between our colleagues in the business and accessing and using data to make decisions. And even though a lot of people aren't necessarily using it in the right way, I think what it's done is it's shown that I think most of our colleagues can interact with something and improve their job. And it comes from a data position. And I think ChatGPT for us has been that way to close that gap. It has started the conversation and it's moved us from a push to a pull where people are coming and asking us, how can I use this better? So I think that's been really interesting that we haven't had to do as much sell. Everyone's come to us. It's been the other way around. Mm-hmm. I think the other bit that we're really excited about is some of the kind of learning that we're going to be putting in place over the next couple of months with our execs, but also with our broader colleagues. So we're running events such as, we're calling it Let's Talk AI Week in a couple of weeks. And again, it's just an opportunity to talk to our colleagues, talk about how to use it responsibly, talk about the fact that we're already using it in some use cases, but bring our leadership into that conversation. So I think the use cases, yes, are fun, and I've got a lot of people in my team that are like buzzing right now about what we could be doing with some of this tech. But I think the bit that I'm personally most excited about is that it has opened up a conversation, and we get to lead that conversation as a data team, which is, pretty amazing.
Yeah, I love, and you mentioned this at the beginning, but the accessibility to data, like Howse IQ, right? When I watch that, and the marketing and commerce teams that I used to work with, and like the data team, it takes them 3 days to get me what I need, and then I have to change it, it gets 3 more days, and like I was watching that, and I was like, holy moly,
Yes.
this is going to be game changing for these business analysts that sit on the business side that need data, can manipulate their data fast. So I agree with it, but getting them to use it, and it'll hopefully free up you guys from reporting to the teams all the time and building cool new products in that next use case. Deepak, when you think about generative AI, guys, I will get it right.
Gen AI and it will
Gen AI, we'll just say Gen AI, all
Just
right. At Mars, and Suze just talked about responsible AI. Like, how are you guys thinking about this?
So I think responsible AI is non-negotiable at Mars. See, Mars, we are one of the biggest family-owned companies, and we put responsibility at the heart of whatever we do. It's a purpose-driven company. I think we have built a lot of leading work in the CPG retail industry when it comes to responsible AI. We are what we can call as a diamond partner to Microsoft, and we have worked very closely with Microsoft to build out the responsible AI principles. And we also work with NGOs like Responsible AI Institute to build out these principles. Now, I'll give you some aspects. So we have a responsible AI governance board, which includes the responsible marketing officer, the chief privacy officer, the head of media, the data and analytics expert. People from various different segments, the legal team, etc. So we have a responsible AI governance board. And we want to do something not only for Mars, but for the industry. So whatever we have done for responsible AI, we are happy to share it with anybody. Even if you work for Hershey's is what I would say. So the second aspect, the responsible AI principle, right? I think there are key aspects. I'm not going to get into all the principles. So as a company, we have taken a stance that we are never going to collect data from children. That is part of a responsible marketing principle, and that is the same principle that we have taken when it comes to responsible usage of AI. We have ensured whenever the models are built, the transparency aspect of it, the privacy, security, and ethical collection of data, the explainability of the models, and the governance principles in general. One of the additional aspects is on inclusion and diversity. Now, I live in New York, right? When you go to a panel in New York, you never meet, for example, the gender diversity, right? So gender diversity was one of the topics. The data and analytics team our team has decided that we are going to focus. And one thing which I'm really proud of is that 50% of my leadership team are badass women, right? So we have fantastic diversity, and our overall diversity is touching 50% globally for the team. Now, I would never ask audience like this. This is something which I would like for you to clap for it, actually, because if there is something that as an industry that we need to focus on is diversity. And I think, and gender diversity is one of the biggest challenges. And in industry, it is close to 20%. And collectively as an industry, we need to work together to change that diversity metric. So responsible AI is very important when it comes to Mars, and all these principles enable us to be successful at it.
Well, I love what your offer to the room, even to Hershey's. But it needs to be, it is genuine, you can hear it, but it needs to be responsible AI as we go into this generation AI for Gen I. I'm gonna have a little rap going. We have to build it together. Right, and I think sharing best practices and sharing how we're approaching the various things from diversity and collecting information from certain people and what to do with that information. We need to really think about it globally and not in our own silos of companies, because I think it is such a, like Satya said, we are the stewards of that. So, I'd love, to hear from you. What should companies look out for, though, when we think about responsible AI? Like, what are the pitfalls, the hurdles, the gotchas that are going to get some brands in trouble?
So I think in general, everyone is super excited about LLMs and everyone is super excited about generative AI in general. But as I was mentioning before, I think we are super happy to experiment on that topic. But it's also, people were saying yesterday in the keynote speech, and also Satya was saying, everything needs to be designed with do no harm in mind, right? So we need to make sure that our data is safe, our customers are safe, that what we do have sound principles in terms of ethical, legal responsibility. There is a question regarding copyright infringement and copyright protection. So we need to make sure that a lot of things have to be safeguarded before actually going out with whatever we're building. We are super excited at the same time, very cautious about it. So whatever, in terms of responsible AI and, a lot of things still have to be put in place in general. I think at every company at this point, even if you think about, our legal systems and our governments are still kind of trying to work out on their own way what needs to be put in place. We're working internally with, with our CISO, with our privacy and security teams to make sure that policy-wise, the company is protected, the people are protected, and not, sensitive data and our customers' data is protected. I think these things are so vital for us. Luxury is, very, very conscious about privacy of our own customers. And to go back to what you were saying before about not collecting data about children, we have kind of a lot of pride regarding making sure that we don't collect external data sources about our own customers. We want to make sure that what we do respects their privacy and that we are working for them to make sure that they are feeling completely served, let's say. So that's what I would say, experimenting has definitely been interesting, and we'll pursue later on additional models or additional, implementational models definitely on Databricks. I had a lot of fun hearing about Mosaic LM yesterday, and yes, we have to make sure that everything is safe before going full on.
Can I just add one thing? I think I completely agree with everything you said. I think the other thing that we're thinking about M&S, and it'll be interesting to hear if other people are thinking the same thing, but as retailers, we have that responsibility, for our customers and to ourselves to educate, absolutely, but we're also thinking about how do we educate our customers themselves. If we all take that step to educate each of our own groups of customers in terms of how they can be responsible in their daily lives, in terms of data, managing their own data protection, AI, I think we all as retailers kind of have that responsibility as well. So we're kind of thinking through what does that actually look like for us and how can we support our customers on their own personal learning journey. Which is quite an interesting problem to solve as well.
Well, I think that builds trust, right,
yeah,
with
exactly.
the consumer and the brand. And so our Connected Consumer report that came out last year that talked about, the increase of consumers to want to know what brands are doing with their data.
Yeah.
And so I think enabling and building that transparency is spot on, and it's not going to be easy. But I also think both of you have large tasks if that goes down to the associate level.
Yes,
and how are you
exactly.
enabling them and the data that they have, but also having that conversation, because they're the front line workers, and really arming them with the talk track there of how you guys are using their data, how it's responsible, and they're protected. So I think those were all great points. All right, so we've got a couple minutes left. I would love any additional thoughts, closing remarks from you guys. What are you going forth with? I know outside of a wedding this weekend that Anna is going to. What are your next big things that you guys are gonna solve?
You start.
Do you want to go for it?
Go ahead. I think you caught us all off guard, so we're thinking.
I know.
All right. Shall I?
Well, it can be quick. I mean,
Okay.
you guys talked about, obviously you talked about Mosaic amount, right?
Yeah.
Like, and using that in Lakehouse. So it could just be product or just, excited to go and teach your teams what you learned here.
Yeah, I think there's probably two things for us. I think we had a really interesting session with Databricks, the Databricks team and the Microsoft team yesterday, actually. I think with all of the announcements, the bit that we're trying to consider is what are we moving forward with, exactly that point. And I think what we're quite excited about is what the team have said is, don't worry about the tools and the tech for now. Let's find a use case, let's build on it together, and let's figure out of all of the suite of things that have been announced, which ones are going to work for you to help solve it. So us and the team are really excited to move forward with that piece of work. And then the other bit for me is, yes, the kind of cultural change that's coming, and how this has kind of given it a good kick up the butt to get moving even faster than we were expecting. So I'm really looking forward to kind of riding that wave, as you say, Deepak, but kind of taking hold of it, taking charge of it, and using it as an opportunity to continue driving kind of that data transformation internally, which is a lot of work, but I think going to be really good fun.
And a journey.
And a journey.
It does not
And a
happen
journey.
overnight, right?
Absolutely.
See, for me, I think I'll highlight the top 3 things for me. The first thing, so the generative AI framework that we are using, we have called it do things better, and do better things, right? That's our generative AI framework. The do things, how can we leverage hyper automation, take out manual tasks, do things better as like content creation or personalization, knowledge management, etc. And do better things is like new product innovation, a little bit out there, like which is like 12 months or 18 months kind of a value creation. So that's the way we have, and we are looking forward to continuing our experimentation. And I think if you have read the Bill Gates notes, right, like the age of generative AI has begun. It is up to us to gain. So that's the first thing. There is high surprise sitting there. Second thing, this is my principle in general. So this is a quote from Mother Teresa. She once told this: not all of us can do great things, but all of us can do small things with great love. So find the areas that you are really passionate about and work really hard towards it. You'll be able to create a lot of wonders, and that's how you are going to scale some of the capabilities. So what are the small things that we can focus on to make the world a better place? That is the second key thing. Now, the closing remark from Mars. So Mars being a purpose-driven company, we always tell that the world we want tomorrow starts with how we do business today. And this is how we can define the tomorrow. And generative AI is going to be one of the most powerful tools, which is going to enable us.
Cool. On my hand, definitely restitution of most of the keynote speech that was definitely full of so many announcements that are gonna be quite big. You were talking about Lakehouse, AI, and IQ, and I think some of these new functionalities will be really mind-blowing for many people. So there is a question of making sure that we can deliver in that sense, so that we have the right infrastructure, that we have the right literature inside the company to make sure that that happens, and it's not just another shiny tool, right?
Yeah.
So I think my work there is mainly that, and to Suze's point before, I think I have to spend way more time than what I have done up until now with the execs, and to make sure that this momentum doesn't stay just as a momentum, but stays as a long-term situation for everyone to benefit from, because there is so much to do and there is so much potential that I think I'm just super excited about it. So
Yeah. Continuing to change that conversation,
Yeah.
right? It's probably a good thing a lot of the business execs didn't come to this because they would all go tell you to run after everything that you guys heard, and you're going to do all these great things with all these new tools. And so I appreciate the thoughtfulness you all have in your next steps in taking this home. So Anna, Suze, Deepak, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being here, sharing your thought leadership, spending the week with us at Data and AI Summit, and really appreciate the conversation today.
Thank you so much. Very pleasure.
All right, so next I'm excited to bring up Rob Saker, head of our RC&G go-to-market. He's actually going to talk about generation AI and how Databricks is taking this into the industry.
Wasn't that a great panel? I mean, they talk about a world-class list of companies and really diverse. Although Deepak, I'm not going to take offense about the less than 15 years, the more than 15 years, the ageism that you called me out on there. Hi, I'm Rob Saker. I lead the, as JR said, the global retail and consumer goods industry here at Databricks. And I want to talk about some of the things that we're seeing, where we think that the industry is going when it comes to data and AI. Before I jump into that, though, I want to set the stage about where we've come. I think it's important to think about this as a continuing journey. You heard it. Like, this is not reinvent. We need to build on the foundation of things that we did. The principles that we do for data management are still absolutely valid when we go forward in this new generation of data and AI. If you think about where we've been past 5 years, what are the things that have been driving our decisions when it comes to data and AI? A lot of geopolitical conflicts, right? We've got civil strife, labor costs, a lot of inflation, shipping disruptions. We were talking over the table about visibility of ships, not being able to see where things come from a port into your own port. And I mentioned inflation as well, inflation being very volatile. And that's the key thing that we're seeing a lot of this is that the only predictable thing is that there will be volatility. And how do we respond to that? Well, if you think about where we came from, even 10 years ago, the pain points that we had. First, data was slow. How many people here came from an organization where you're getting data maybe batched in every few days, like a 2-3 day delay? And then we went to batch. And now we see the need to move more to real time. The longer that we wait to update our data, it has a decay of value. And so the time that it takes for load between that and when a decision is made, we have the higher likelihood of making bad decisions. Data sitting in multiple silos. Data sitting in different areas there, and I want to join it together. One of the panelists talked about doing forecasting, a unified way of doing a forecast. I got my supply chain, my finance, my commercial forecast. I don't have 3 forecasts and have to argue about which one's right. I want to bring that data together in a harmonized way that I can act against it. Models take too long to complete. This is a big pain point for me when I was a practitioner. Wanted to run a forecast or an out-of-stock calculation. I had millions of calculations to do. I had about 2 hours to do it. And what do? We compromised the accuracy of what we were doing. Difficult and expensive to democratize data to the users. You had proprietary data warehouses, other surface level things. We focused on the edge to serve it out, but it only served certain users within there. And then lastly, collaboration was done with FTP. I'd send my information in night, in batch, over to somebody, hope they would pick it up, they'd go through that, and we'd have to have jobs set up to monitor and make sure that data was actually getting loaded and extracted. What was the ideal state? What do you think about it? I want to do real-time ingestion. I want to do complex data transformations in real time. These were things that 10 years ago were not possible without a lot of work and a lot of expense. Old Lambda architectures, which anybody worked through, you know the complexity of what we deal with there. Talk about the siloing. I want to have data management for all different types of data. I think it's the Forrester stat. Only 7% of companies' data is structured and in a warehouse. 93% of the data is unstructured. We think about generative AI, this becomes a real need. I want to be able to eliminate bottlenecks in training and scaling out my models. I want to manage the ML lifecycle in a central environment, monitor for drift, develop, monitor, deploy. I want to have high concurrency, low latency SQL, right? I want to have it inexpensively, cost-effective, low complexity solving. And then lastly, on collaboration, why can't I have real-time collaboration on the data? And how do we do this? And I think with the Lakehouse, we've actually addressed all these things. And this is the nice thing. Again, where we came from, we build upon this as we think about going forward with this new generation of generative AI. It's tough for me, even JR, to say. So structured streaming, autoloader, Delta Live Tables, Delta, you see the names. We've been very methodical about looking at the end-to-end journey that you have to go through with data and AI and transforming the lakehouse to be able to accommodate these needs. You think about applying this to real life. Actual scenario that we're working with the customer today. Get point of sale data loaded in real time. That e-commerce data and POS loaded. I get my real-time depletions. I have accurate reflection of the inventory levels as a result. We set the permissions to control who has access. We do out-of-stock predictions. We write that out-of-stock to a table. We grant that table as a view to a distributor. So if anybody's in the grocery or C-store sector right now, what would it mean if your suppliers, especially in DSD, had real-time visibility into your depletions right now, so that if a truck is rolling tomorrow, it's on the truck. You're not waiting for the next truck a week from now. 2% improvement in out of stocks is 1% of gross revenue. If we can shave days off of response time, we can have a sizable impact on our business. And this is it. Nice fancy architecture slide, all brought together nice and pretty. But what's next? What about the future of AI and consumer goods? Well, I think there's 3 things that we're seeing. There's a lot of these little pilots and pockets of things that we want to do. But first, I think a massive growth in data sharing. And there's different forms of data sharing that come into play. So let's take that scenario with out of stocks. I do the same sort of thing. I want to model it. I'm still using data that I have to get from partners and FTPing and bringing it back and forth. I go through all these boxes. I do my calculations, and I have to batch it out. Or maybe I do delta sharing. Oh. Yep, here we go. So with the marketplace, if you saw the marketplace announcement, if you think about what's important in terms of predicting behavior at a store, especially in a convenience, let's choose that channel. I need to have my retail point of sale data. I need to have promotions and replenishment. I want to bring in some causals. What drives activity in that channel? Weather's a big factor, right? Local events are also a big factor. I can go out to the marketplace, be able to take from over 400 different data sources without moving data. It's data sharing. It's a view. I can see this information from Chris, AccuWeather, Predict HQ, and I can bring this together. I bring my shipment data with these sources. I go through the same journey. I grab a solution accelerator for out of stocks. It's going to cut down by months and weeks, down to days the amount of time that it takes to do a POC. Delta sharing and data sharing is a way to rapidly enrich at a low cost the data that you're working on to do experimentation around machine learning. Another area in terms of data sharing, the concept of clean rooms. Now this was one that took a little bit of time for me to get around. Clean rooms are a way to securely share information with your partners in a zero trust, zero data movement type of manner. A good example of this is when we think about, I'm doing ad targeting. So we'll take Anna as an example. Anna has her information about her consumers at Gucci. She knows what they engage with Gucci. The challenge is Anna doesn't know what they engage with when they're not at Gucci. How do we get this information to come in and enrich her understanding, but in a way that preserves GDPR and CCPA compliance? And this is where clean rooms come into play. Clean rooms allow you to enrich your understanding of consumers in a probabilistic manner, not a deterministic. You can do an obfuscated view of consumer to enrich. So it's not Rob Saker, it's people that resemble Rob Saker. I get a wider signal that I can work against to do my targeting. So clean rooms are really important when you think about driving better CPMs if you're a retailer, or getting higher ROI in your ad targeting. They're better at personalization and a lot of other use cases, and you see some of them here. I want to improve my ROI of marketing. If I have a wider signal of data coming in through data sharing with my partners, I have more likelihood of hitting the right person when I target. Think about shopper insights. Disaggregated panel was kind of the norm for years. It's a subset of consumers that are recording what they're doing, but unfortunately it's a statistical projection that smooths out the behaviors of individuals. If I start to do clean rooms, I can bring in better signals about what people are doing, get more precise about my shopper insights. Met with a retailer last week and they said, we thought our coupon customers were bad. I thought they were just coming in and it was losing money. They brought in clean room with their information, and they found, you know what? They're actually great. It doesn't generate any incrementality on the purchase, but it increases the number of trips. That level of detail that they would never have before because they're enriching the signals that comes across. We have a great partner, several partners. I put this up here because if you were looking at clean rooms, talk to the Howse folks. I think they have a booth down here. These guys are the smartest guys in the room when it comes to data sharing in clean rooms right now. Now, I mentioned, in addition to the 3 partners that you have, and we saw the marketplace announcements, there are 400 different data sources that are out there. So as you think about doing your experimentation, the ability to quickly pull this information to test, think about things in days, it's gonna really rapidly cut your data down, your time down. So we're looking at 400 different data sources. Some of those are free. Some of those are public government sources that we just made convenient for you to bring in. Okay, the next prediction, composable architecture, just what we need, another buzzword, right? So, I got a few chuckles. So a composable architecture is this concept of an extensible architecture. This is not a product, it's not a technology, it's a framework for how we think about building our environment that gives us lower cost to implement capabilities and optionality. Working with another retailer right now that has a CDP. The CDP was great at the time. It was an end-to-end implementation of what they did. They brought their data in, they loaded it in the CDP, that was the source of truth, goes to the end, and they're serving out and engaging customers. Now the challenge is, it's no longer meeting their needs. So as they think about replacing the CDP, what do they have to do? They have to go to the beginning, bring the data in. It's an end-to-end project. And so we think about what a composable CDP is, use the lakehouse as a way to land, integrate your information in consumers or other parts of your business, do the resolution of your information there, and give you the optionality to quickly integrate to different partners. This comes up in every single conversation with customers right now, the idea of composable CDPs. The reason for it is twofold. Consumer goods companies need better ROI in their marketing targeting. Retail media networks are coming hot, but the CPM of a retail media network right now is about half of what you get on Amazon and other channels. They're less accurate, they're making the retailers less money, they're costing the consumer goods companies more. The way that you address this is with a richer signal of consumer information. Now, it's not just for doing ad targeting. Give you some of the other examples where we're seeing this come into play. Again, the optionality to think about all your different touch points, to be able to quickly integrate in and start to deliver these capabilities to your organization. Personalization is a great one. Think back to the scenario where I'm Anna. If I have a broader range, I can deliver more relevant types of things. Maybe somebody's a fan. Sam's a fan of purses. I don't know that because she's never bought a purse from me, but I know from her other interests that she likes that. I can start to do better personalization, a wider signal. I mentioned ad effectiveness and shopper insights. We're going to be doing a lot of work on composable CDPs, a series of webinars, local events, more. If you are in this space and you're thinking about any one of these partners and more, these are the partners that we have. And so we're working with this to make it a lot easier for you to start thinking about implementing a composable CDP. Okay, lastly, generative AI. I'm probably the millionth person to talk about generative AI this year. I thought the last panel was actually really smart about the approach. I think Suze said it. The key thing with generative AI is about trust. It's about having something where it's a new way of interacting with your data. And I really think that's what it is. I think generative AI is just a new mechanism to interact with your data. If you think about what we traditionally did with data in the past, I did my data preparation and my governance and my modeling, and I started to serve out results. But that result had a step between that and the decision, and that was the human synthesis. What generative AI does is it takes that synthesis part and really cuts it down. So you're interacting with Gen AI, large language models or other tools, but you're getting the best practices. There's still a lot of work that we have to do in this area, right? It's a very emerging space. Every week, new capabilities come up. There's really 4 different types of generative AI. LLMs get all the love, right? Because they're really hot right now, and they're really cool. But images. We're working with another customer right now about how can we personalize the images based on the customer attributes back to the CDP. Where do they live? What's their age? What are the types of things that they're doing? If you have images that resemble your own backgrounds or your interest, you're gonna have a higher open rate and conversion rate. Audio, video, and more. Different techniques. Now, the nice thing is, when you think about this lakehouse architecture, it gives you that optionality, right? You want to use GPT and tune it to your information? Great, bring it in. You want to start doing some GANs or other things? Bring that in. You can work against that same ecosystem of information. Now, I mentioned this is the scenario I generated quickly just to say, what would this look like? So I generated the first image. And then with the prompt, I just started tweaking things around. So Mac is my niece. That's not Mac, by the way. I said, attractive women in their 30s, the background. And then I started changing it around. What if it's buttoned? What if she's in a park? What if it's casual? What if it's a green pea coat? I can quickly generate these different options as we come in. Now, this seems great. There's a lot of challenges with us getting to this point. Another area that we're working on, we actually released a solution accelerator on this for product search. If you're in home improvement, dear Lord, please implement this, because when I go to the hardware store, I'm like, I don't know what this thing is. It's a whatchamacallit that does something. I'm like, oh, you need this. And by the way, they always lie to me. It's always on the aisle that's about 20 from where I'm at, because they don't know either. They just want to get rid of me. But with LLM product search, I can describe the intent and how it's used, and it'll come back and bring that product. Hey, I have a kid that has allergies, and I need to wash their clothes. Well, you need a laundry detergent that doesn't have scents. And there are 4 that are in store in your local area. Talk about engaging with information in a different way, compressing that synthesis time between information and an answer. But there are challenges with this, and we heard it from the panel. Data ownership and relevance. There's a competitive advantage to having data of your own and keeping that in your own environment. This is nothing new. I mean, we have recommendation models that you can subscribe to as a service. But when you put your data into the pool, you're helping everybody else out. And even with some of the safeguards and promises, leakage occurs. A depth of knowledge that's required for specialized. I mean, there's a lot. We read white papers every week. Where's Brian? Every week on Saturday. We're talking about these things. It's emerging so quickly, and there's a lot of rapid progress in this area. It's really hard to stay up in this space. Hallucination and bias. I've been doing an Instagram experience for the entire year. Every day I'm putting out a new image that's generated via AI. And I have some images that will haunt you. Babies with 3 legs, demon horned squirrels. I mean, it's really funny. But you have a lot of these things in terms of the data will create artifacts that don't actually exist. And until we do that, we can't put this in front of our customers. Malicious activities, I don't know. One of my favorite, if you want to look for a great website that is using generative AI for search, perplexity.ai. Any users? Okay, a few. It's wonderful because what it does is it will tell you, you ask it a question, it'll come back and tell you, it'll give links. And if it doesn't know, it's not giving you anything. I don't know should be an acceptable answer right now. If I go to ChatGPT, it's gonna give me an answer. It's gonna sound really authoritative, and it can be wrong. So going back to our architecture, remember this whole lakehouse ecosystem. Let's roll this up into one lakehouse, and let's talk about the next set of challenges we gotta work through. And this is not exhaustive. I need to be able to deal with the volume growth. Remember Forrester's stat, 7% is in a data warehouse. That means 93% of your data is unstructured. We need a low-cost way of managing and storing that information. I need to govern information. Here's the kicker. If you're dealing with data governance, you have rows and columns. You're controlling information. What's the structure of unstructured data? How do you do data governance on something that is by default unstructured? Explainability, we heard a lot about this. Why was a decision made? The EU regulation in terms of the AI Act, I think is a really brilliant way in terms of defining how we should be thinking about this, classifying the problem, But explainability has to be part of this. I have to know why a decision was being made. And then lastly, the cost of training, simplifying training. I think the first iteration of GPT costs like 15 million. Another version was like 4. Our Dolly experiment earlier this year was to show how you can bring this down to low cost. Now, it's not the same. We're doing a 6 billion parameter model. They had 160, very different type of problem. But the cost, most organizations cannot afford to go train and spend millions of dollars to train, especially when you're not certain what the outcome is. This is actually why I'm really excited about Mosaic, because they share that same ethos in terms of bringing down the cost and making it more accessible. So how do we evolve here? A few announcements that we made, but we're not perfect yet. We have to continue innovating and working with our customers to test through this. So we announced Cloudflare, a partnership, as well as Dell. If you have data on-premise with Dell, ability to do Delta sharing so you can actually use that within your models. Cloudflare, it doesn't require you to put it on the cloud, other than the Cloudflare cloud, which is low-cost CDN. How do we decrease the cost of bringing that unstructured data in? The second area, data governance. We announced the acquisition of Okera. As much as people are excited about the acquisition that we're talking about earlier this week, I'm more excited about Okera. Okera is AI-based governance. It allows you to inspect in a probabilistic way the data in your environment and determine the risk. If we're gonna do generative AI, that is the most important thing that we have in our belt. You can't do that data governance without probabilistic methods. Explainability, protect data. I saw an interview by Hugging Face, the CEO, I think it's on LinkedIn, where he's talking about, it was a testimony to Congress, and he's talking about the importance of open source as the way to improve the transparency and visibility of what we're doing. If 2 or 3 companies own the models, our risk is concentrated, it's opaque, we can't get there. The open source community here is going to be the way, and partners such as Hugging Face are gonna lead the charge on this. And then the cost of training. Obviously, we have Dolly learnings, we have other things that we'll be coming out with to help bring this a cost of generative AI down. Now, a few goodies for you. My team has been doing a lot of research and application of this. We've created solution accelerators. If you're not familiar with the solution accelerators, by the way, get your phone up, because there'll be a QR code and you go to a link to it. These are fully functional end-to-end capabilities that show you how to solve a problem. We have 3 right now that are out there that you can take. They're free. You can start experimenting. We're gonna have one that really bothers me, which is forecasting. You're able to do forecasting with LLMs. It keeps me up at night thinking about this. But if you go to this QR code, it's a link to all of the solution accelerators that you can take. Every one of these is free. You can download into your environment, start playing with it today. Again, low cost, rapid experimentation. Think of this as like a 20% head start on your projects. It'll show you how to do this at scale. Get started, and then you can quickly build and own it and iterate from there. This is my last slide in terms of predictions. I put it out here so we come back in a year and you can tell me if I was accurate or not. I will say the one thing that you'll see out here, as much as I talk about generative AI, I don't think we're gonna see production use cases on a wide scale this year. I think there are too many challenges. But if you are interested, you should be experimenting, you should be piloting and learning. Every part of your day should be figuring out how you can use this to augment code conversions, writing emails, analysis. The better you understand how your users will use it, the better you'll be able to build this. That's it for me. I'm really excited to announce the next speaker here. Manbir, you wanna come on up? As he's coming up, Manbir joined us. We were at NRF in January, and he gave this great presentation, and the aisles started filling, and it was absolutely incredible. So Manbir, I'm really pleased to see you here. Here's your clicker, and
Awesome.
I will pass it up to you.
Thank you. Well, everyone, it's been a long session, but I can tell you this, that what you're gonna hear today from me resonates with everything that we've heard with folks around here in the room. And what I'm gonna walk through today is a journey of what it felt like taking all of this that we've just heard in real life in an organization. what does it really mean to take all these pointers and really implement it? And we're going to share a journey, what we've gone through at Sephora. I hope a lot of this thing is going to resonate. I'm going to not use the term generative AI, although we're not going to use the term generative AI, but we are going to talk about what it takes to really drive value for the organization. And you're going to hear the term value quite a lot from me on this. When we started onto the journey, we knew from the start that there's an aspect of objectives for the company to grow and an objective that should relate to how we look at data for the organization. We can't churn the ocean. We got to look at impactful areas, and we've heard this multiple times, but how do we really approach that? How do we really approach impactful areas? You can see that experience in this conference. You can walk to any of the session. If there's a term Gen AI, there's a big line outside, and you'll see people lining up because that's the talk of the town right now. But really, where does value come in with Gen AI? Does it come in? And what's the foundation of everything? I heard in the executive session we talked about earlier, we used to focus about data and just whisper about AI. And now we're talking about AI, whispering about data. Isn't that an extreme that needs a balance somewhere over here? So we're going to talk about that balance, how that balance comes through. Talking about data strategy, and really just data strategy, what it relates to an organization, in this case, what it means for Sephora. You're going to see quite a words over there. Data strategy outline how we collect, manage, use data to achieve our growth objectives. So there's a lot going on in this sentence. And one of the things that you will notice is the strategy starts with the term collect. But there's a very interesting misnomer over here, because when we get into data strategy, we start talking about collecting data. That means we need a tool, and on. We get Databricks, and that's going to solve all problem, right? That is an interesting conversation to have. In fact, it does not. That's where the problems start, because we haven't really looked at the people and the culture part of the process. We haven't looked at the people and the process piece, how that connects together, for us to use a tool that solves a problem. So when we talk about collect, manage, and use data, we're talking about using data. That means people in the organization, what using of data means to them. Where do they need data to generate insights? Can we meet them over there? That's the impact. When we talk about manage, how do we manage changes? How do we manage aspect of governing? How do we manage the access of the security aspects of what folks in the organization can look at what data and all of that? I know we all talk about this, but it's not the fancy part, because it does really help us generate fun things out of it, like generative AI could, right? But that's where the real value for the organization starts coming in. Once you have these two pieces in place, you talk about people and you talk about the process, connecting that with a tool is where the magic comes in. And now, even then, you have a big problem to solve, because you have a lot of data. You have organizations, us with legacy of data sitting with us. Where do you start and where do you end? There's no right or wrong answer to it, but you can get a clue. And the clue is, where is your business objective? What does your business look at as my key differentiating factor that helps me progress? And that is your focus area. So if you can drive that focus area and focus on that growth objective, that narrows down your challenge. So you're not churning the ocean now. So that's kind of what we're trying to say over here. How can we look at a data strategy that collects, manage, use data to achieve the growth objective? Now, when we look at data strategy at Sephora, I have a very interesting analogy that I try to make with this. In an organization, you're making a lot of decisions, and you're making a lot of decisions on a daily basis. And the aspects of making decision and how accurate those decisions are, how impactful those decisions are, directly relate to how you're impacting the growth, how you're contributing to the growth. If we can use the aspects of technology to help us make more accurate and in the moment high-performing decisions, our growth will be so strong, supported by the aspects of data and technology. But if we look at data and technology as a technology that comes in and figures out what needs to be solved, we kind of run into that cycle of, are we solving the right problem or not? So when we look at aspects of data strategy, we look at the aspects of data strategy with what are we doing on a daily basis? How many decisions are we making on a daily basis? Do our users have the information that they need to make the right decision? And how we look at this is separating all of this out into accessibility of data, how timeliness is the data available, is it actionable for me, and how accurate it is. If I can focus on these attributes of the data, I can enable a person in an organization to make a decision. And not just a decision, but a high-impacting decision. And those high-impacting decisions directly relate into the growth for the organization, directly relate in supporting the organization based on their growth objectives. One of the things to keep in mind over here is, again, there is a lot to churn. How do you focus? And the focus is looking at the higher impacts. So if you can look at your pioneers across the company and look at their most challenging problem that you can solve and enable data in that context, you are spending the energy that's going to help drive the biggest impact for that individual in the company, and that is where you start. And that is where you continue doing it, and slowly and gradually, you'll have all of these check boxes, and your decisions are all going to be high-performing decisions. And that should be the goal when we look at data strategy, and that's how we look at data strategy, how we prioritize, and how we approach aspects of driving growth using data. Now, another great thing, and this so much resonates with the Gen AI conversation that's happening so much around here, is democratization. And we've been harping on this term quite a lot. It was interesting when we started talking about a year and a half back, the term started coming into life, and a lot of focus on driving democratization. And then Gen AI comes in and it makes it true, right? You know English, you can use Gen AI. You don't need Python anymore, you can use English, and you can get an answer through an AI solution. Now, within an organization, when we look at data strategy, we can enable data strategy to drive impactful decision-making once we can democratize the aspect of data usage. You cannot have data engineers sitting in one part of the organization trying to use data, and you can make a huge difference. You will need to spread it out. In order to spread it out, you will need to look at ways of how do you identify your data citizens across the organization. And that was our focus when we started looking at value from data. It is a very strong synergy between your business champions and your data champions. Won't it be amazing if your business champions are also your data champions? That was our goal when we started looking at aspects of democratization from data. Connecting these two together is a super powerful aspect of driving data strategy for the organization. Identifying individuals within the organization that are your business champions, enabling them with the aspects of accessibility of data, accuracy of data, timeliness of data, and how accurate that data is just super powerful for those champions. Think of the value that they can generate understanding their business and using the data to generate value instead of a data engineer or a data scientist sitting at one corner, not just solving the problem, but also trying to understand the crux of the business challenge. Isn't that a more difficult problem to solve than someone who is a business champion already? We focused on that aspect to help really spread out the knowledge of leveraging data. And that also relates to the aspect of building the culture. How do we start using data to make decisions? Now, I think earlier we start talking about this analogy of customer and different aspects of knowing a customer, and you could touch the tail of an elephant and the belly of the elephant. But you got to understand this aspect that there is, at the end of it, there is one view of data which could be looked at from your business champions in the way that resonates to them the most. There's nothing different in the data. The raw data is still the same, but it's all about how you're looking at the data. And that is an aspect that can only be done by someone who is a business champion. And that's kind of where we look into the aspects of optimization within data. How can we make an aspect of data, whether it's a customer profile, whether it's our product catalog, how do we make sure we can take that view of data and empower our business champions? We call them data stewards as well. How do we empower them in order to take that information and really massage the data and optimize it for its usage? Optimize it to make their decisions in a timely manner. And that's kind of where the aspects of data citizens come in. It is a key term when we start enabling organizations with understanding the data and being able to take that data to the level of making decisions at the speed at which they want to make decisions on a daily basis. Now, what we're going to talk about next is, as we start looking at enabling data and the data citizens, how do we start taking an example of reducing the scope of work that we are doing over here? And for us at Sephora, you walk into a store, and the first experience that you will see is how the store staff is so much tailored to guide you through the discovery journey. How much focused are they to understand your challenges and be able to address the challenges, guiding you through the journey in the stores? For us, that is at the heart and center of everything that we are doing. If that's at the heart and center, client is at the heart and center. And with technology, irrespective of stores, irrespective of mobile apps, irrespective of .com, irrespective of social media, that still applies. And how do we take that experience that we provide in stores and provide that experience throughout? We use the term personalization. That's definitely a key for us. We have been doing that in our stores. We have been doing that in our digital channels, and that was our focus. How can we focus on aspects of client behavior, aspects of client identity, aspects of how we interact with clients, whether it's the purchase patterns on the clients, consumption patterns on the clients, and what kind of products resonate with the clients? How can we build enough metadata for our products to be able to link them to our customer profiles, our customer segmentations, and really drive what is relevant for our customers? When we know this being our focus area, it makes really easy for us to focus on solving those specific problems instead of trying to turn the ocean over. Once we did that, we were able to take the aspect of our data stewards along with the data optimization framework that was in place, using the priorities, focus on solving the fun problems. Now, there are fun problems that are not just fun for data scientists or data engineers to solve, but also fun problems that will be high impactful for our business champions as well. Data strategy implementation. When we talk about implementation, we talk about implementation in a lot of these terms, and I'm pretty sure you've heard all of these terms all throughout multiple times, and might be very familiar with that as well. I wanted to just focus on where we started. Where we started was people, process, and finally getting into tools. I want to refocus ourselves over there. People, process is still at the start of this. All tools are accelerators. They're catalysts for us to get there. And when we talk about implementation of data strategy, we want to, again, focus on the same thing. Your data governance is nothing but how you're putting a structure together to really put boundaries around your processes. Your data governance is how you enable your organization to embrace data, whether it's identifying business champions, whether it's identifying your data stewards, and enabling them to be able to use data which is accurate, which is actionable, and accessible to a broader audience. Finally, once you enable all of that, that is when the power of the tool comes in. You want to make sure that you have observability in place. You want to make sure that you can validate and define quality of the data. You want to make sure that you can validate the completeness of the data. All the aspects of automated data validations, all aspects of automated metadata creations, data cataloging. The value of all of that comes in once you have that initial process in place. Now, I said all of this, but just for a moment, think about organizations. If you really go into an organization and think in those terms, and you're going to ask millions of dollars from a CFO to get funded for this kind of capability, I mean, good luck. Good luck. Maybe year one you have better luck, year two you have a little better luck, and year three you're definitely out of the door. So I would really, really like us to think about how we balance the act of business, people, process, and tools. It is important for us to generate value. It's important for us to onboard the people of the organization together in this journey, but at the same time, it's also important to harden our capability to be able to satisfy the appetite that we've built. We have enabled business champions, we've enabled data stewards, we've enabled tools, we've built that appetite, and in order to satisfy that appetite, there has to be the operational aspect that goes in, and that's where these tools come in to help us do that. What I'm trying to say over here is, you have to keep an eye on people and process while you harden your tools to help support that once the flywheel starts churning. When the flywheel starts churning, that is where solutions start coming in. For us, with personalization being at the heart and center of this, everything that we do, whether it's personalization use cases in our digital channels, whether it's in stores, whether it's our aspects of supply chain, our focus is based on where we drive the biggest impact. Whether you look at aspects of the experience you get in the stores. You walk into the stores and you can be guided with fragrance selections. You can be guided with your skin diagnosis to help discover products into the store. And taking that same experience and your buying and consumption pattern online with product recommendations, with aspects of propensities, aspects of churn within our customer segmentation framework, followed by the aspects of supply chain optimization, whether it's forecasting, whether it's aspect of supply chain optimization, all that starts coming in together. But this is all fun. Please do remember, this all is enabled that can sustain only when you have the aspects of people, process, and tools in place. That is what I have for you today, and thank you for listening. Hope some of that resonated, and I hope that you're gonna make this happen in your organizations too.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure to work with you, Manbir, and always a crowd pleaser from a content perspective, so thank you. Okay, a couple things left to go through. I'm going to talk about some of the awards that retail and consumer goods have won broadly for Data Team Awards, and then our specific industry award. And then we're actually going to open up to questions from the audience. Our content will be over, and we're going to bring back up Rob Saker as well as our technical director, Brian, for questions from the audience about Databricks. So get your questions ready as we go. So to kick off Data Team Awards, I first want to call out some of the finalists and actually Unilever, who was a winner for the broader Data Team Awards. So Albertsons, Burberry, Barilla, and Unilever. Amazing, amazing job to all of these teams. Congratulations. This was announced earlier in the conference. We had an award ceremony. But today I'm really, really excited to announce our industry award winner. which is Burberry. Unfortunately, the Burberry team is not here today, but they've been given their award. We are super excited to give Burberry this industry team award this year. They've completely transformed their organization by standardizing on the Lake House. They have increased collaborations for their teams, but most importantly for them, and what they were really focused on was lowering TCO. So you can see here from a metrics perspective, TCO has gone down over the last 4 years. They've saved on headcount and they've consolidated their technologies. So congratulations to Burberry. Woo! With that, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, we are going to open up to questions from the audience. I will have this mic. I'll bring over mics for you. Rob and Brian, thank you for joining us. Brian, who's our technical director for retail and consumer goods, are going to be answering questions from you all. So go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question, and we will start passing out the microphones.
Are we up on stage? Or
You're going to be up on stage.
Oh, let's do stage. Get a seat.
This is what they colloquially say, what is it, stump the chump. So, yeah, I guess we'll open it up here. You're welcome to leave. You're welcome to stay, ask questions. If there's anything that you saw this week you want to get more insight or understanding about, especially as it applies to your business, now's your time. Oh, this is great.
Yeah, dead silence.
Any key use cases anyone's focused on that they saw highlighted this week where they have questions?
So, okay, can I ask a question?
You may.
Again, large language model forecasting.
All
It
right.
haunts me. Can you talk about the approach that we're taking
It's
here?
not, we call it LLM forecasting. That's what everyone calls it. It's not actually that. So generative AI is a class of models that we call transformers, right? Transformers are great at predicting what comes next. Right, when we do it with LLMs, we predict what word comes next. When we do it with images, we predict what pixel or cluster of pixels comes next. When we do it with forecasting, we teach it about groups of similar time series, and it learns a sequence. And then we can find a time series that seems to kind of align with what it's seen before. Doesn't have to be the exact same numbers, but based on what it's learned about what follows what, it's able to spit out a number. And surprisingly, it does a decent job in certain areas. And people are finding that it's not only a way to kind of simplify and reduce the number of models that you have to create to generate good quality forecasts, it actually is really good in scenarios where you have new product introductions, where you have ideas about how things might evolve and how they relate to other products. And so it simplifies some stuff. Now, it's still very theoretical, but we do have working examples that we're going to put out there, and we'll let people decide for themselves if it works for their data.
What are the limitations that do you think they're going to run into with this? Or the things to overcome?
I think the biggest limitation is you need to be able to start thinking about your time series in terms of those that follow certain kind of like wave patterns. Right, so there's a lot of stuff about kind of pre-processing your time series in ways that are kind of new and novel that most people in this space haven't done before. But once you've done that, done a little bit of simple clustering on things that have similar patterns, then there you go. You just have to plug your stuff in and go for it. So a little bit of transformation work that's different than before.
Wonderful. I popped the seal.
No one's going to call BS on transformer
question.
based. There we go. You're going to call
There we
BS
go.
on it.
Like a math problem here, like if you just think of it as like what are the inputs that are actually going to cluster them together, then when you look at forecasting, am I actually audible for everyone?
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
Okay. So when you're actually clustering factors together, what predicts the next cluster of events? What predicts next behavior of demand, right? So think of the Ukraine war, like what has actually that done to certain consumption patterns in Middle East, or migratory patterns of people,
Yeah.
So what do we have an authoritative book of knowledge that can actually lead to accurate prediction?
So you can incorporate what we call exogenous variables, or some people might call them external factors, some people might call them causal factors. I mean, in the forecasting space, we kind of need to clean up our vocabulary and come up with some consistency, but you can have those inputs. And so if you have that historical pattern, you can go for it. But when it is brand spanking new, just like any forecast, it doesn't know. And so I want to be real clear. I'm not up here saying this is the way forward. I'm saying it's a way that people are exploring, because if you look at what words follow what, I mean, it doesn't seem like you'd actually be able to do a really good job of that, but we've all seen ChatGPT.
Yeah.
It does an amazing job of that. And in some cases, this forecast does an amazing job of predicting what comes next. And so it's one of those things that I think you need to try and see and have a discussion about. But in terms of understanding exactly how it's getting to those results, that is always going to be problematic. I don't know any way past that for quite some time.
But I think that the other key point is that it's not a silver bullet, right?
No.
This provides another tool when you think about forecasting. If you have intermittency, if you have hierarchical challenge, you have different methods that you want to go and test to see which one would best explain it. And I think that's really the benefit of, when you think about machine learning, these others, we can start to look at more of an ensemble type of approach.
And also it's like leading to the prompt engineering aspect of it, right? So what exact prompt is going to get you the best exact match of what you're actually looking for?
Yeah.
Right, so the question you're asking, just because the microphone was off there, was what prompt gives you this? And what's different about this architecture, it's not like you craft a prompt like, hey, give me a forecast based on the following. It's a little bit more mechanical. If I keep given these inputs, what would you predict is the next 7 items in sequence to predict for the next week at a daily level? And it goes from there.
And I believe, I don't know if we've announced this, aren't they somewhat related to this? They're looking at LLM as an ability to go and read directly from delta tables.
I do not know. You're asking the
I
wrong
might
guy
be
on that
speaking
one.
a little bit earlier. There's I mean, again, I said a lot of the innovation that's coming through, and one of the challenges is accessing that information and like LangChain to do different techniques, but other things. So this is a space, again, where you read what he publishes in the blogs, watch our solution accelerators. We're reading every single week. It's just iterating at such a rapid pace.
Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah, my name is Niels. I'm from Clorox. My question was before we start running the LLM model, do we have to pre-process and harmonize the data outside of the LLM model, or can that model take care of that as well?
Oh, cleaning the data? Is that?
If you have different sources, you're bringing in, let's say, your POS data or finance data sets from a different system, and there is not a clear match between the two data sets, can the LLM model take care of that?
The harmonization of the data
Yeah.
between the two.
So I guess it depends on what you're going after, right? So LLM it's a type of model. There's a number of applications. If it's one of the common things we see is, take a look at the data and generate a query, more or less generate a query to give me an answer to a question. What we're finding in that space is it's pretty good at simplistic relationships between things. And so I think that it could kind of bridge some gaps with enough instruction. But the more it becomes more and more sophisticated of a question, the more these things tend to go off rails. Sean Owens actually published a LinkedIn article, I think just a couple weeks ago. If you don't know Sean, you need to go look his name up. He's really, really amazing in this space. But his was, hey, let's just call out the state of the art. There's some really simple things these things are pretty good at, and there's a lot of the things that we really want a model to help us with that they're very, very far from.
Yeah.
So I think if that's kind of where we're headed, what I would tell you is give that space a little time. I would focus more on getting my data clean and reconciled. I would focus more on kind of classic, data unification, confirmation is what we used to call in the data warehouse space, conforming your data, that type of technique, and allow analysts to use traditional tools for that today.
And we published, I agree, there's more accessible ways to simplify it before you try to go fancy in terms of the neural net or anything like that. We actually published 2 accelerators on N80 resolution, and one was product. You got product in 2 different locations, not a common identifier. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to start linking those. We have a customer N80 resolution, and they're designed at scale. And these are starting patterns, but I think things like that, the better you get your data in the right structure, and you start thinking about governing, obviously the quality of data is the biggest determinant of the quality of the outcome.
Yeah, and in that, it's the more you can solve these problems up front, it's always going to be better downstream. If you're having to clean it up after the fact, and I know a lot of us on the supplier side, we get data from retailers and we're just kind of at their mercy of what they give us. We can advocate for better standard approaches, right? But yeah, the things that are in-house, the more we can do that up front, the easier our lives are going to be.
Hi, Shamir Mirza with 7-Eleven. I was really excited about what you guys showed with Lakehouse IQ and the ability to connect the semantic questions with the generation of code that map back to the tables. How long does that really take in terms of running queries on the standard databases that you have before that semantic mapping actually starts running to the promise of the demos you guys showed?
quick answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
What I would tell you is that I know it's something we've been playing with for a while, and they wouldn't put it out there unless they felt reasonably confident with it. But short is, I just don't know. It's a very new space, and I gotta imagine as your data becomes more, the structures become more and more complex, the more challenged it will be. But I think that we will very quickly see this and be able to kick the tires and kind of get a sense of it. The problem we have in this space, though, is that when we make statements like this of I think it's going to be difficult, usually it's a couple weeks later that there is that little bit of a breakthrough where we have to kind of change our opinions. So I would encourage everybody to try these things, figure out what works and what doesn't work, and kind of put a mark on the calendar to come back in a few weeks and see what's kind of gone from there. It's moving so quickly, it's hard to make a very definitive statement.
And participate in the preview programs that we have.
Yeah.
When we put this out there, participate in that. And another thing, as an analogy, they were, I think one of the best uses for LLMs is actually going to be for code maintenance and conversion. We go from Spark 3.3 to Spark 4. Do you want a team of people manually updating to be able to deal with this? We have large customers that are, like for a long time, we're in Spark 2.4 when 3 was out, and part of it was conversion. Can you take your code and automatically do the update to the new format? So I think, and when we saw that internally, it was like 99% accuracy. So again, I think experiment with it. Your results are going to be probably unique to your situation. And of course, we'll publish more as we get actual facts about it. Cool.
Any other questions? Come in.
The Clorox team is engaged.
We are. It's a long time coming. I'm Jeremy Dunn with Clorox. I'm really curious about two things, and it's really rooted in data privacy and proprietary information. I feel like we're going to quickly hit the ceiling with publicly available data to train these models. So we've got good general models now, but if we want to deploy something within our ecosystem, our environment, how are we going to get our models just going to be now we're going to buy either something off the shelf or something semi-custom, and is it just going to slowly learn off of our ecosystem, or where do you see that kind of that product life cycle going in terms of how do these general models continue to grow off public data, but also as an enterprise, how do we continue to grow ourselves in parallel?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question in that it really goes back to the role of the data strategy and the data officers, that they, for a long time, have been thinking about governance and strictly monetization, and it's going to require a rethinking in terms of acquisition. And acquisition in unique ways, partnerships, people going out and doing things. I do think that the data clean room aspect is going to be a big part of that solution. You can do your information, I give the example of consumers, but you can do stores or products or other things and have a way to do and enrich, take differential privacy. So retailers right now, they have sovereignty rights or rules in terms of what level of grain that they can give to you, typically like a market level, not necessarily accurate. The Publix near me is not like the Publix 3 miles away, but according to that read, it's the same. But can you get to lower levels, a differential privacy type of approach to enrich your information and give you a broader range? So I think clean rooms is probably the easiest near-term step to start enriching it, but then you think about the entire value chain. People are going out. You've got brokers that are calling on stores and they're capturing photos and images. Distributors are going out. Is there a new ecosystem? If we had enough of this, the cost of sharing that actually goes down. The challenge has been the technology makes it prohibitive to exchange, and so you had only a few players and the cost went up. So I think we're going to see a democratization when it comes. The data acquisition techniques like differential privacy and clean rooms should help to do that. But you should be thinking about, as you talk to your organization, that end-to-end value chain. And do I have a person that's going out to stores, can take shelf conditions and take pictures of that? Maybe it's not even mine. Maybe I'm going out to the AB InBev distributor and saying, I'll pay you, 50 cents to go out and take conditions and see what's out there, and how do we think about it creatively in that regard? All right.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining. It was a pleasure having you all. Feel free to walk up and ask questions after the fact, but have a wonderful rest of your conference and safe travels home.